everybody. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Julie.
And we'd like to welcome you to our first official episode of A Blonde, a Brunette, and a Mic podcast.
That's right. Coming to you from the Emerald City on a nice sunny afternoon with the fireplace going, and we're all cozied up on the couch, the puppy's sleeping.
I know everybody thinks it rains in Seattle, but that is not always the case.
Okay, you can just go ahead and keep telling yourself that. But the reality is that it does rain a lot.
Okay, I'm just going to dive right in because this was a really interesting learning for me. Of course, preparing for this episode, 5 love languages.
Yes, love languages.
Are there only 5?
Well, we're going to talk about the original 5, and then we'll dive a tiny bit into the new and improved 7. There's actually a few others, but really what they are kind of subcategories, in my opinion, of the original 5. So,
Got it.
So love languages came from a book that was written in 1992 by a gentleman named Gary
Chapman,
yes. And really, I think was designed originally for more traditional types of relationships, marriages in particular, you know, and how to identify what was going on with your partner.
I read that book.
I did too.
Back in the day for that very reason.
Yep.
It was kind of a thing in the 90s, this 5 love languages concept.
Well, it was another way to communicate, you know, or figure out how to communicate to make your relationship stronger. I think that was the original intent behind it. And everybody's so different, you know, and one thing that you and I had talked about is that as we've changed and matured, maybe the love languages that resonated with us when we were younger or young moms or whatever are different than they are today.
I learned that as I was preparing for this.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
Yeah.
I took the quiz and I was like, wow, it didn't turn out exactly like I had anticipated that it would. So
Same. Which to your point, it's exactly the case. Speaking of the quiz, are guests going to be able to have access to that?
Oh, yeah. We are going to put a link for the quiz. It's a free quiz that you can just take. You know, it'll be in the notes of our episode here. You can kind of just take the quiz yourself and get a feel for what is your love language. And it would be helpful probably to do that for the person that you're involved with or your friends or honestly, your family members. You can actually take this and apply it to a lot more than just romantic relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So diving in, Michelle.
Yes, there's 5 that were going to be the core of our conversation today. Well, I thought it would be a good idea to give like the true I looked up the definitions. We both did. As we introduce the 5 love languages, we'll talk a little bit about the actual definitions of those and then just kind of branch off from there. So the first one is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, that turned out to be my primary love language, which wasn't the case before when I first read this book and earlier on, and even up till last week when we were preparing for this, I was telling Jules like acts of service, and we'll get into that and tell you about it. But acts of service all the way for me is what I thought. But then I took the quiz again, preparing for this episode, and it turned out to be words of affirmation for me. So what that is words that communicate your love, appreciation, and respect for another person. So like positive words and phrases, and using those to uplift somebody, and compliments and words of encouragement. I think also for a person when they're not around, like when you're speaking very highly of them in other conversations with other people about that person. I think that's super meaningful.
I believe that is absolutely the case. The one thing that I wanted to share on words of affirmation is that I feel like this is a very wonderful category. It's definitely something that resonates with me to some degree. It's not my first one, but it definitely resonates with me. I think even more so when it's not something that you're hearing all the time, but comes across in a really genuine way. And so, for example, if you're talking with someone that you don't talk to all the time and giving them feedback on a specific thing that they did or a post that they did or whatever, and really giving them examples on, you know, gosh, I loved what you said and how you said it. It came across so meaningful, you know, whatever it is, but they know that you actually genuinely put some effort into the compliment that they're receiving. And same, you know, with a partner, obviously, you know, if you hear, oh yeah, good job all the time, or, oh wow, that's great all the time, it doesn't really have a lot of substance to it. It doesn't resonate. At least with me, it doesn't as much, because it feels like it's more words and not necessarily the meat and potatoes behind those words.
Right. Like, I love the way you wash the dishes, babe.
Yeah.
The way you move that dish rag on that plate.
I love the way you pick up the dog's poo in the backyard, babe.
Oh, jeez.
When you bend over. Yeah, see, that wouldn't work for me. I'd be, get your butt out there and pick it up yourself. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first one. So the second one is quality time. And Michelle, do you want to give the
definition?
Yeah, definition.
Time spent in giving another person one's undivided attention in order to strengthen a relationship.
Perfect. Yeah. So when I think of this one, what comes to mind for me is that when an individual is giving me their undivided attention, or they have taken the time and set the time aside to be able to spend with me, without having any distractions, things like that. One of the things we had talked about, in preparation was, in our day and age, the cell phone is probably the one thing that will get in the way of this. At least I can say for me, it's been a challenge because, first of all, I kind of attached to my phone because of my job. So I do have my phone. It's present in my mind a lot. And so if I'm really trying to, speak with somebody and get to know somebody and not be distracted, then I will put it in my handbag, or I will turn it off or turn it over, and I don't bring it out. I'm not having it present during conversations that are important or when I'm meeting people, because the impression that it will give someone if you do that is that whatever's on that phone or whoever you're texting or whatever is more important than you, the person that's sitting in front of them. And that's not a good feeling for people, I
agree.
Yeah.
And really, let's be honest, the cell phone is I think can be a huge divide in a relationship.
Yeah.
Not just, I know we're talking about quality time, but because it does take from that in so many ways that I think we're not even realizing in the moments.
Yeah.
So.
I think it does. It takes a lot of our time. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of my time. I'm so guilty of scrolling through TikTok to look at Chihuahua videos. I look at other videos too, but I like the Chihuahua ones, because I've got a Chihuahua. So my daughter and I share those back and forth. It makes me crack up all day. Definitely not something I should be doing when I'm with clients or if I'm, out with my friends. So there you go.
True.
Yeah.
So we've got words of affirmation and quality time. What's number 3, Jules?
Number 3 is physical touch. Physical touch can be in a romantic relationship, obviously a little bit different than when you're talking about with a friend or family member. And some people are really into this. It's really important to them. It's how they show love to other people. And some people are just not touchy-feely people. So it's really understanding your audience is kind of important on this one.
Can I read the definition?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so definition for this one, physical touch, expressing and receiving affection through touch, physical closeness, and other forms of physical connection.
Okay.
Kissing, hugging, holding hands, and sex are all ways of showing love. Also, high fives, a pat on the back, like friends and kids, coworkers, that kind of a thing. So physical touch can be a lot of different things. So
this is the love language of intimacy. And intimacy is something that is so important in relationships, romantic relationships, obviously, but friendships and family relationships and things as well, different types of intimacy. But this is how you're able to really connect with someone on a much deeper level. So some individuals are very into, say, PDA meaning public displays of affection, and others might be more reserved. And so you have to really know the person that you're around. If they're not a hugger, then don't hug them, high five them, or, say goodbye and don't touch them. I know it's hard because I'm really a touchy-feely person. I like to hug. And it's like, great example, meeting my son's girlfriend for the first time, and she's darling. I gave her a hug, and I was like, she was so stiff, and I know she was probably nervous too, but I said, "You're not a hugger, are you?" And she goes, "No, we really weren't huggers in our family." I'm like, okay, I got to work on this girl because, it's such a thing,
Even therein, you get to know what her love language is.
Yep.
So that you can identify and connect with her in that way. That's why it's so important to discover and know,
what makes people tick.
and that's a great way of putting it. What makes people tick? It's
Yeah.
not this love language.
Yeah. Well, and this PDA thing, I'm telling you, it's like, I am not one to go sit there and like have massive public displays of affection in front of a large audience. I'm not going to sit there and go make out in the corner. That's, first of all, not my jam. Second of all, it's like, okay, we're not 20. I wouldn't do that anymore. But I had, as an example, dated this one person who was really into that and kind of threw me off a little bit. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit much too soon. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't like it. It felt weird to me. And ultimately, I didn't really kind of want to hang out with him anymore because he clearly didn't get the message. So, there's that too. Everybody has different ways of...
At least he did it right off the bat, so you could just like put a halt to it.
And then when I did put a halt to it, he kept doing it. So, yeah, someone doesn't listen. Yeah, whatever. So, anyway, next one, acts of service.
Acts of service. Actions that go above and beyond. Some examples, obvious ones, would be like mowing the lawn, doing dishes, cleaning, taking the car and filling it up, washing it, that kind of thing. Anything that can make your partner or friend, it can be friend again, anything that can make that other person feel appreciated or make their life easier.
Yeah. I think we were talking about this before, acts of service, both of us were feeling that this was probably our primary love language earlier on because we were really busy working moms with kids at home, and there really was not a lot of time for a lot of other things. And so if someone took care of getting the groceries or, folding the laundry or whatever it was, it was so appreciated because we really just needed a break.
Super meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really important.
Put mama in a good mood for sure.
Yep. Put mom in a good mood. Yeah. I didn't get a lot of those with my kids, but okay, whatever. They didn't understand my love languages, I guess. But yeah, that's a big one. And I think doing that for other people too is really important. Like making their favorite meal. I think that's always fun because they know someone's thinking about them.
If a coworker loves a little Buc-ee's in their life, if you're not from Seattle, that would be Starbucks. And, if you bring them just a
latte.
Yeah. Just bring them their favorite latte to work some morning because it's their favorite. And, kind of makes for a good relationship there at work as well. So just different things like that.
Or here's another one. My sister, the most amazing cook. She kills me, but man, she's such a good cook. Anyway, she makes this amazing lasagna. And my daughter loves lasagna. She absolutely loves it. So the only time you really get it is like Christmas time or, one of the holidays or whatever. So my sister just goes and makes a pan of it for my daughter just to take home and have, just made with love by Aunt Angie. And oh my gosh, my daughter was so happy because first of all, she could kind of split it all up and put it in the freezer so she could have it for a while to come because, it was a big, huge pan. But I just thought that was so thoughtful and so nice, to do. So
again, meaningful. And I think, to the point of that, making them feel appreciated and making their life easier.
Yeah.
Because she just recently moved. So I'm sure that made things easier for her to not to have to think about a meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she got all excited about that lasagna. It rocks.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
I guess that could fall under receiving gifts too, right? The next one.
For sure. Gifts are something given willingly to someone without expecting something in return.
Yeah.
And honoring that person or an occasion.
It was funny. I was talking with one of my children about the love languages the other day, and he wasn't really familiar with them. And so I kind of went through them and I was like, what do you think yours is? And he was like, oh, gifts. Absolutely, gifts. And I thought that was kind of funny, because it was all about what he was receiving. So I made sure his girlfriend knew that, but I want to make sure he knows what his girlfriend's love languages are too. In all fairness, he needs to know those too.
It's got to go both ways.
Yeah.
Like they refer to a love tank and keeping it full. And that's exactly how we do that, is by those little things in whatever love language it is that is meaningful to our partner.
Yeah.
Or our kids.
Whatever
the relation, our friends.
Yeah.
All those things. A little more about gifts is we often give gifts to reconfirm or establish a connection with someone, which means that they're a reflection of both the giver and the receiver, as well as their unique relationship. So I thought that was kind of a deeper dive into what can be really surface in regard to gifts. Giving a gift to someone we care about allows us to communicate our feelings and appreciation for them.
Yeah. I think it just is very thoughtful. And I think what's important to note here is that gifts don't have to be something expensive. They can be something thoughtful, something that person likes. Like you were saying about bringing a latte to someone at work, or someone you knew was having a bad day, or making dinner. That's a gift. You're providing. It's also an act of service, but it's like you're doing something special for another person, and it just shows that you're thinking about them. It doesn't have to be, a Louis Vuitton bag, although that would be awesome if it was. But hey, does not have to be. But I'm not going to send it back if it shows up, right? It doesn't have to be expensive things. It just has to be that they're thinking about you, and that also is not something that you ever take for granted, because the moment someone feels like you don't appreciate their effort, the effort stops.
Yeah. I think even when it comes to cards and things like that, that's such like a non-existent thing these days, because we wish people happy birthday on Facebook and Instagram, and we do all those because of technology now.
Right.
So when you take the time to actually
snail mail,
yes, and you look for the card.
Yep.
That's the time, the thought, and time you're putting into it, and trying to find the perfect card, and writing in the card, putting it in an envelope, filling it out, getting a stamp. Look at all the labor that goes into something that seems so simple.
I know, it's very old school.
It is old school.
But I absolutely love getting mail. I love getting cards, just random things. I have a dear friend who lives in Idaho, and I just sometimes will get these random cards from her, and I just know she's thinking about me. It's like the best. It totally brightens up my day.
Yeah.
I enjoy that a lot. So yeah, gifts.
And the thing, is that all 5? So we talked about words of affirmation, physical touch, gifts, acts of service, and quality time.
Yep.
So yeah, that is the 5. And I think an important thing to realize here is we might know our primary love language. And how did you do the quiz, Jules?
I did.
So did I. So that's what, did we need to put the link on our page so that our listeners can get it. So again, the link will be on the page, so you can take the quiz. But the thing to remember is knowing what someone else's love language is.
Yes.
Because what we tend to do is what our primary. So my primary love language is words of affirmation, and what I tend to do sometimes for my kids and people at work, I do those things because I know that's how I stay motivated in regard to relationships. But you need to know what theirs is. So especially if in your relationship or with your kids or best friends, whatever it might be, knowing what their love language is so that you can do those things for them even makes it more meaningful.
Yeah, it's not what you want, it's what they want. So that's where you have to be able to dive a little bit deeper and kind of understand a little bit more about what makes that person tick.
I remember with my oldest son used to be really into skateboarding. I did not enjoy that. He was into skateboarding, but I would go watch him skateboard because I knew that it's what he loved to do. Yeah. Even though...
And he may not have said he wanted you there, but darn well he's looking out the corner of his eye to see if you were there. Yeah. Yeah, it means a lot. It's like going to all their... Well, first of all, I loved going to all their games, but I would go to all the games, and they know. They pay attention, Yeah, that's a rabbit hole topic, I think.
It kind of can be a rabbit hole, but...
So, hey, we were talking before about the traditional 5 love languages, and as time has progressed from 1992, the love languages have kind of progressed too, and so...
That makes me feel really old. I'm sorry.
Does it?
Well, 92. I know it was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's weird that you can say 30 years ago. And
yeah.
I was an adult at the time.
Well, I was an adult, but I was super mature.
Okay, sorry. Keep going. I just felt old in that moment.
Nothing's changed. Yeah, I know. Again, going back to, I think the origin of this was for very traditional types of relationships. And so, when we were, it was a 30 years ago, we were all about, we were married, we were all about that kind of stuff. So now it's more, if you think about it, something that you can apply in your daily life to people that you care about. It doesn't have to be a wife or a husband.
Right.
It can be a partner of any kind. It can be a friend of any kind. It can be your coworkers. It doesn't really matter. I think it's really how we convey it's our method of caring, how we convey to people that we care about them. Yeah. And with some people, you're going to go deeper, obviously, than others. I think you just genuinely have, the ability to show people that you care. Yeah. So.
Well, and being authentic in that.
Authentic's huge. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of line up these other ones so we could talk about them for just a second. Okay. So I'll introduce them and we can see that some of them are actually sub-bullet in some respects anyway, to the traditional 5 love languages. So the first one is activity. If a partner or friend takes an activity or really plans something special that they know their partner is, something that their partner would want to do, not something that they want to do necessarily, but something that they know will be really important and special to their partner. One idea or one example I was thinking about this is like, let's say you have a significant other and that person loves to go fishing. They love to fish. First of all, I'm telling you, that would be like the worst nightmare for me. But if I loved somebody and they wanted me to be with them and go, I would totally do it and I wouldn't complain.
Would you?
Once. Okay.
I'm just trying to envision, I'm sorry, everybody, but I'm just trying to envision Julie doing that. And I'm sure if it was the love of her life, she would. And she would make herself enjoy it for that person.
I might have a few seltzers.
It was just a hard visual for me. So anyways, keep going.
Yeah, well, around here, it's freaking cold, right? So cold, you're all bundled up, sea creatures and stuff. So, but if it was like in the Caribbean or something, I might be okay.
Oh, that
I don't know. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm using that as an example, but let's say that your partner likes that. So you make an effort to plan, a fishing trip, or making sure that you've packed whatever lunch you're going to pack. So everything is all together when you guys are on the boat and you're learning what to do and all that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. But if your partner does not reciprocate or feel appreciated or convey their appreciation on something like that, when it's really not something that you're into, my venturing guess is you probably wouldn't keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it has to be reciprocated, I think. And when you're in a relationship, it's important for both partners to really think about what's important to the other person. So maybe it is, like I was mentioning, there's some artists that I absolutely love and they're R&B artists, and not something necessarily that one of my partners that I had they were interested in. We weren't interested in that music at all. So going to a show.
Can I just ask which artist?
India Arie is the one I'm thinking of, but there's a few others, but that's the one I'm thinking of. Macklemore. Love Macklemore.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, we could go on and on with that list, but the point that I was kind of trying to make, I guess, was that those concerts and things were not of any interest to my partner. They weren't really interested in going or doing those things. And so maybe if my partner had gone, it wouldn't have been as fun because he clearly wouldn't have wanted to be there.
Well, it depends on, but then it depends on the mindset that goes into this.
Right.
This whole activity that we're talking about in regard to the love languages.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be something, truly, if you're going to come together on stuff like this with someone, and I'm speaking more of a intimate relationship with somebody like you were referring to, it's got to be something that you communicate about so that you're both understanding and you have that understanding going into activities like that.
Yeah.
Of course you don't want somebody dragging their feet going to a concert just because they know what, they have to have the mindset of, this might not be my favorite, just like you were talking about with the fishing.
Yeah.
But because so-and-so loves doing it, I'm going to love doing it for a day.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Just have fun with it. And you never know. Something more might come out of it for future activities.
Yeah. So it's just really important to understand that those things they need to be reciprocated, I think, in order for it to really make sense and be of value.
Yeah.
The next one is appreciation. So compliments, praise, thanks, explicitly showing or telling your partner what you love about them, and again, going back to family, friends, whatever, you could say it for any type of relationship, but being really specific about it.
Appreciation.
Yeah.
I think that ties in with words of affirmation.
Yep, sure does. Yeah.
And I was just thinking before you moved on a minute ago, activities would probably tie in with quality time.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I was saying, you see that there might be some subcategories to these. Right. And I think as relationships have evolved, as time has progressed, people need more. Mm-hmm. They need more than these 5 categories that you can kind of try to decipher. They want to get maybe a little bit deeper because they want to add that type of meaning to the relationships that are important to them.
Yeah.
And again, going back to non-traditional types of relationships, it doesn't have to be the traditional heterosexual, man and wife or husband and wife. God, did I just say man and wife? Shoot me dead. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. Okay,
till
husband
death
and wife.
Do us part.
Yeah. I will walk behind you. joking.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Not really.
yeah, not really. Anyway, so that's kind of, where that goes. I think it's important to show your partner and tell them what you love about them. And you don't always do that. You don't always tell them. You think they already know. So the next one's emotional. So supporting them through difficult and scary times and just being present, for highs and lows. You got to know if it's a romantic relationship that your person has your back.
Yeah.
And that they are there for you. Doesn't matter what the situation is. They may not be happy with you. They may not approve, but they've got your back.
Right.
And if you know that your person has your back, no matter what, good, bad, and ugly, that is a pretty wonderful thing. And it goes for, again, family and friends as well. The next one would be financial. So when a partner is generous with resources and gifts, and it could be a lot of things too, like a partner realizes that something is super important to you and you are on a budget. Your family's on a budget. So they try to find way in that budget to make room for whatever it is that you want to do. Let's say it's that you want to go to the Super Bowl. Okay, that's a really expensive example, but we're just going to go with it. It's really important to you. You've got your team is in the Super Bowl. So they're going to find a way to make that happen because they know how important that is to you. And it's like just seeing the excitement and the appreciation on their face is worth everything. So if you have the means, of course, and you're willing to share that, that's what that one category is talking about. The next one was intellectual. So they feel loved. Someone feels loved when their partner values their intelligence and respects their opinion and will take the time to kind of have thoughtful, deep conversations with
I
you.
think that's a big one, I think. Intellectual conversations. Because I'll be honest, there's not a lot of times, but there are times when I don't feel very intellectual.
Well, you might be in more of a learning mode.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go deep on different topics, right? Because we all have different philosophical ideas. I mean, I can remember, back during COVID, when BLM was going on and there was so much controversy and awful stuff going on in the world and people were very passionate about different topics and really getting into very, very deep conversations about things that we really hadn't talked about, That's the kind of stuff that I'm referring to. If it's, really learning and understanding what is important to somebody, what scares them, what their fears in life are, whatever they are, if they feel vulnerable enough to talk with you about these things, all that does is build a stronger bond, right?
Yeah, it does.
So I like that one. I think
the listening part is key. Feeling heard as a result.
Huge.
Yeah.
And not feeling like you are asking somebody to solve your problem.
Or have to explain yourself.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. Like I find with myself, if someone's sharing something with me that's devastating to them or that they're really having a hard time, I try to figure out a way to fix it.
Yeah.
And that's not always the best thing to do. I mean, sometimes you just need to be there to listen, but I find my tendency is like trying to find a solution to that. And kind of that drives me crazy when people do that to me. So why do I do that to other people?
Because you have a giant heart,
yeah,
maybe?
Maybe too big sometimes, But yeah, so that's kind of funny that I bring that up. Practical, feel loved when their partner chips in with everyday duties and responsibilities. So I think that goes back to acts of service.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the busy lifestyles that people have.
I think sometimes there comes a balance too when you're talking about financial and practical. If one of you is more that financial contributor and the other one is, the practical, emotional supporter, it kind of balances
absolutely
out. Yeah.
And that's all part of really strong relationships.
Yeah.
When I see, and there's really only a few that I can think of off the top of my head, relationships that I know are like ones that you would want to model your relationships after, marriages, what have you, where they're equal. You can feel that they're genuine love. Honestly, there aren't that many that I know.
Yeah.
And everybody has problems, of course, but when you think about relationships in general, it's nice to have a role model, I guess, of what to kind of shoot toward.
Yeah.
Not to say that you would want everything to be the same as whoever those people are. That's not what I'm saying. But being able to kind of be with a person who you feel like you can just be yourself and that you can have these conversations and not have to agree on everything or be judged on the things that you're saying.
Right.
I mean, that's really when it kind of dials down to the core of who you are and people accepting you for the person that you are. You know, and as we've gotten older, that has become less and less of a concern, I would say. When I was younger, I know that was very important to me. You know, it was like I really wanted the appreciation of and the acceptance. The acceptance of some people. And I know that there were some that it was never going to happen to the degree that I wanted it to. I think everybody goes through that, you know, and you see it in the people that are around too.
Do you think, this might be a rabbit hole, but do you think that has to do with our upbringing?
Absolutely.
I mean, I was raised in a very strict religion, as were you, and there's a lot of judgment and rules, and it's like when you don't follow, you feel like you're going to be in trouble and not accepted, and all the what ifs. Anyways,
or you have to go to confession.
Yeah.
Not that I ever told them everything.
Oh, yeah.
I make it sound like there was a lot. There really wasn't a lot, but.
Sorry. Yeah. Like I said, a bit of a rabbit hole, but I think that has to do with how we feel in those situations sometimes, and why for me, I guess, have had to explain myself sometimes in regard to different scenarios. But.
Yeah. So now you'd mentioned that you had a change in the love languages that you had when you were younger. To now.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, acts of service was my love. When I read this book and I was figuring out the love languages thing, because at the time I was married, my husband's was physical touch. Mine was acts of service. And like I was a working mom. I had 4 boys. They were 13 years apart from oldest to youngest. I was busy, and there were a lot of things and activities, baseball, all the things that you just go from one thing to another and hope that you get some food in them before something else, and you know, get them to bed at a decent time. So my house was not always the most tidy, and you know, so when I think of acts of service back in the day, that was the huge one for me. Would be things getting done to make my life easier, like in the explanation for that love language. And I just always thought that that's what it was, because I still appreciate that. I still appreciate things that make my life easier. My life is very different now than it was then. But when I took that quiz, I was surprised to find out. I had started to contemplate if it was different in preparing for this, but it now is words of affirmation. So when I took that quiz, words of affirmation were number 1. Acts of service was number 2.
Do you think that, and again, this is a little bit of a rabbit hole, but do you think that that's changed because the dynamics of your relationship are different? You're not, you know, you're living long distance from each other right now. Do you think that's part of it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. And I think over the course of the last 10 years since I've been on my own and not in a married situation, I've done a lot of growing and changing as a woman. And so I think as that progression happens, the words of affirmation, because I've been giving myself, I've had to do that for myself. Mantras, if you will, affirmations, you know, to continue growing and getting stronger in my life experiences. Because of what they were.
Well, even like this year, when we were finishing up our shenanigans on New Year's, when we went out for New Year's, and the next day, you know, there's 3 of us and we're all sitting around chalking and we're talking about what word we're going to have to affirm and focus on for our new year. And obviously that's not maybe it's a love language. It's a love language to ourselves, you know, where we have to kind of think about what word is going to exemplify what we want to focus on. I came up with the word elevate, because I really want to try and elevate the parts of my life to a different level, several different parts of my life to a different level, and really put the energy into things differently as opposed to half-ass some of the things that I've done in the past, you know? And so I wrote that on my bathroom mirror, and it's written on my refrigerator. I've got it up here, so it's on my notepad when I'm getting my grocery list and stuff going. And it's something that I'm at the gym and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want to do another burpee. And then I'm like, elevate, Julie, and just gets my ass in gear, you know? So we're giving our own words of affirmation and stuff out there too, to each other and to ourselves. So anyway.
Mine's challenge.
Yeah?
Yes.
And what does that exemplify for you? What challenge?
Challenging myself to do things that are hard, things that I haven't done before. So
getting out of your comfort zone.
Getting out of my comfort zone and exploring new opportunities that challenge me.
I like that.
Mentally, physically, emotionally.
I don't know. I find it's January, and I mean, we're going to be into February when this episode drops. But it's funny how we have to kind of keep that momentum going, you know, because it's really easy to get into April, May, June and just kind of forget and go, oh, geez, I'm moving on to the next thing. But I'm really trying to keep that focus. And that's why I think I put it on my mirror. So in the morning when I'm getting ready and stuff, I can see it.
We do the same thing in our relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of love languages, getting back to, you know, what we're talking about, I think we tend to move on in the same regard, whether it's friendships, you know, intimate relationships, all the things, coworkers, people at work, our job, and we kind of get in this mindless groove and we kind of forget, you know, about things that are really important.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes back to that. I think I mentioned earlier about taking things for granted. You know, when you see that you have a person that you adore in your life, that it does these special things for you and you don't acknowledge or you assume they know how much you appreciate that, my venturing guess would be that it might not happen as often or it will stop because they don't feel that they're appreciated. And I know if the situation was reversed where I was the one doing, you know, the thing for somebody else or, you know, whatever it was, and I didn't feel like they were appreciative of what I did, I probably wouldn't do it again, you know, because you're like, well, I'd probably get my feelings hurt.
You know what? That just made me think about when we were talking about acts of service a minute ago. It made me think about, I was a stay-at-home mom for almost 10 years before I financially needed to go to work. And when I started working, it made me realize how much I did do in the household. And I kind of went on strike because I felt like nobody was helping me.
Yep.
And I literally, I mean, I wasn't holding the sign, stomping around the house being on strike, but I just let shit go.
Yep.
Because I didn't know what else to do. I was overwhelmed. I felt like nobody was helping me. And I let the shit go.
The expectations are that you do the 40-hour-a-week job and you raise the children and you know, get the groceries and make the dinner and read them their books and give them their baths and take them for walks. And, you know, there's no time left in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic, isn't it?
It is. It sure is.
We could go on about that one for days, I think. But anyway, so here we go. These are the love languages. And I think the purpose behind what we're trying to achieve today is really kind of getting your mind wrapped around the idea of not necessarily a book or these specific things, although the categories are really helpful. But, you know, as you start your year, how are you applying these things to your life in relationships that are important to you, whatever those relationships may be? Maybe this is a little kick for you to really kind of evaluate, you know, if you're stepping up and doing the things to help the person you love feel special.
And my challenge would be maybe think a little bit outside the box based on some of the information that you've heard today and seek out maybe what a love language is, whether it's, you know, if you're a single parent, what your child's love language might be. If you're in an intimate relationship, your partner, don't just do the typical chocolates or flowers or dinner out. Expect a little bit of the, you know, when you get home.
Something.
But, you know, think outside the box and see if you can challenge yourself to do something that resonates with what their love language is, if you have an idea of what it might be.
Yeah.
So
even relationships like marriages that have been, you know, in play for 40 years or 35 years. I mean, you got to keep things interesting, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise they get very mundane and it would be silly to say otherwise. But I think people that have really strong connections have these kinds of little things that they do for each other and express for each other. And ultimately, you know, people know that the other person is there for them no matter what.
Yeah. Well, really, we talked about 12 different love languages. There's a core 5. So if you want to know more, if you want to know what your primary is, follow the link that's on our page so you can take the quiz yourself. And we will be back next Monday
with another episode.
Of fun things to unpack. So until then,
have a wonderful week, you guys.